Excellent, thank you. All right, well, perhaps we will get started. We are recording the session, so anybody that comes in late will be able to have a look at the recording and go back over things. I will say at the moment that this is my first run of this particular PowerPoint. It's its first trip out in public, so we may be ironing out a few things along the way to see how we progress and tweak it so that it works well for these webinar sessions. But first of all, I would just like, we can get started by just doing the welcome. And I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land that we are meeting on today. For me, that is Kaurna land that I live on up here in Gawler, and respect their spiritual connection with this land. I acknowledge my gratitude that we share this land today and my sorrow for some of the cost of that sharing, and my hope and belief that we can move to a place of equity and justice together. Welcome everybody, thank you for joining us. It's great to see so many people coming online. These particular sessions have grown in their popularity over, obviously, since COVID, and very, very pleased to be able to get to more people in the state over over the internet. My apologies, I've just lost my track of thought for a minute there. I do thank everybody for coming, and I would like to just say that if this is as far as you go in terms of thinking about foster care and looking into what foster care is all about, we all still very much appreciate your attendance here tonight. Sometimes just listening to this information gives you enough confidence to share it within your networks and talk to other people about things that you've seen and heard about foster care. And even if you don't yourself go forward with a foster care journey, you might inspire somebody else to do so. What I will do to start with is just to introduce you to some other people that are online with us today, who I will throw to throughout this session to speak about all things foster care, and I'll let each of them, once I've introduced them, to talk a little bit about who they are and what foster care is to them, and then we can get started into the full presentation. So first of all, I would like to introduce you to Glenn, who comes to us tonight as our foster care ambassador. Glenn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, thanks Avril. My name's Glenn Davey. I have been a foster carer now for almost 5 years, and we have a permanent placement, and I'm really happy to see everyone along. Thanks Avril.
Thank you, Glenn. We also have online with us tonight our carer engagement officer, who is Cherie Hardwick, who is probably one of the first people, if you move forward with this journey, that you're going to see from Life Without Barriers. Cherie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. Great that you come along tonight, and I look forward to talking with you in the future. Because you're going to come and join us, aren't you? Yes.
Thank you, Cherie. And next we have our carer practice manager, Mr. Mike Down.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Lovely to be here this evening with you all. You've probably worked out by now that I'm a POM. Don't worry, don't hold that against me. Avril gives me a fair amount of grief for that. It's all good fun. Yeah, so I work at Life Without Barriers. I'm the guy that manages the team of people that bring foster carers through the assessment process. So we'll talk a little bit more about that a bit later. But lovely to be here and nice to see so many of you with us tonight.
Thank you. Just a little bit of housekeeping for those of you joining us. First of all, we can't, this session is being recorded, but what we can't see is your faces. I've got a list in front of me that's come up of who is attending, but I can't see you. And we have a chat box that if you have any comments or questions that you would like to put to us, please put them in the chat box. We will get to those throughout the night. I kind of try and keep an eye on them throughout our discussion, but also there is a big opportunity at the end of this session for questions and answers, so we will scroll back through. Also, from time to time in the chat box, there will be some links put in to hear about carer stories, and also a call me back form, which is a very, if you click on the link, it just pops up a window. You can put your details in and somebody will be in touch with you from Life Without Barriers, usually within the next 24 to 48 hours, to have a bit more of a chat about things. So I will from here just give you a bit of an overview about what we are going to talk about tonight. First of all, I'm going to give you an overview about Life Without Barriers as a full agency. We do foster care, but we do also do a broad range of other services, and would like to just let you know sort of everything that what we're about. Then I will talk a little bit about foster care and what foster care is, why children come into care, as well as who those children are and what they need when they come into care. Then I shall, we've done that one, and then we will end with some common questions. But first of all, now that we've heard all about you, you've heard all about us, my apologies. I would love to just get a sense of where everybody is coming to this webinar from. So I'm in Gawler. I wonder if you could all, and this also tests your chat box capacity, if you could either type in your postcode or what suburb it is that you are living in into the chat box, that would be fantastic, and we can capture that information just so that we get a good sense of where everyone is. Or someone in Two Wells just around the corner from me. And if they're just postcode numbers, I'm a little bit less au fait with postcodes. Looks like we've got a lot of northern carers this week, which is fantastic. Oh, wow. Beck wins from the furthest away. We've got someone that's come to us from Malaysia, moving back to Australia next year. Welcome, Beck, and really looking forward to seeing you in. Cherie, I'll just have to let you know right now, I'm not going to approve you to go to Malaysia to do the carer interviews.
I am devastated. That would be like the best place ever. That's awesome.
So yes, very good. Thank you very much, everybody. That's quite a few different postcodes and whatnot that have been up there. Thanks for that. So we will also talk a little bit about sort of, yes, what it takes to become a carer in terms of the assessment process and the steps that you'll take through that. But first of all, a little bit about Life Without Barriers. So we are a leading national organisation with a social purpose, essentially to partner with people to improve lives for the better. We provide people with the services and assistance they need so that they can achieve their goals and maximise opportunities to participate fully in society in any way that they wish to. We have partner with communities and Aboriginal elders, government and the private sector to ensure that we can achieve these our goals. And we have over the years worked and continue to work with over 23,000 individuals in over 500 communities across Australia. We support through providing a range of different services, including foster care, family support, disability, aged care, mental health, alcohol and other drug addictions, the refugee and asylum seeker programs, and a whole bunch of other stuff in terms of social inclusion for people. We were founded in Newcastle, New South Wales, initially to work with children, with adults with disability, and then we've just, I think that was in 1994, and we've since grown to have offices across Australia in every state and territory except Canberra, I think. And certainly we do outreach here in South Australia and cover the metropolitan areas and right up to Ceduna, out to Ceduna and up into the north for most of our services. So our values as an agency are really, really important to us, and they form a huge part of the way that we speak, the way that we recruit our carers, the way that we recruit and employ our employees across the board. They kind of make a lot of sense when you're working in the sectors that we work in terms of relationships being extremely important and very, you know, the first base of what we do in the work that we do is build good and positive relationships. We're also imaginative, especially as times get tough and money gets tight. We need to get quite imaginative about the way that we achieve the things, the great things that we achieve over the financial years. We're respectful, responsive. As you will find, if you end up filling in one of those call me back forms, you'll get an answer and a call back very, very quickly, as one of the examples of our responsiveness. And we're courageous. Obviously, there is a lot of advocacy that needs to happen for people that experience lots of levels of disadvantage. And so we do find that we stand up and speak out against all sorts of injustices and for all sorts of minority groups. So now I'll just move in to talk a little bit about foster care. And foster care is obviously for children who need some time away from their family and need somewhere to provide a safe environment for them. The Child Protection Department has the responsibility of identifying children and young people that are at risk and that may need to spend some time away from their families while they work with their families to make the situation better, to return them in the first instance, but also to determine what needs to happen for the long term for children and young people. So you might hear foster care talked about as foster care, also as out of home care, and then as family-based care. And sometimes another type of foster care is kinship care, where we find actual family members that are able to provide the care for children and young people. So we have about 50,000 children that are unable to live at home with their birth families at any given year. And so we obviously need foster carers to help us look after 50,000 or more children over time. So covering some of the reasons why children come into care. Obviously, the most common reason they come into care is because of abuse, physical, sexual, or emotional. The next reason is through elements of neglect, and that can be due to poverty and all kinds of other reasons of not being able to meet children's needs. Then there's parental mental health conditions that prevent parents from being able to safely care for their children. We do have a number of children that come into our services and into foster care because their parents have died, and there's no close relationship in a kin or community for people to be able to look after them. And then we also have a situation where we have children that have significant needs that are beyond the capacity for the parents to be able to meet those needs. And they can be physical disability or medical, quite considerable medical conditions where it just becomes untenable sometimes because of poverty and mental health, makes it very, very difficult for children or for parents to look after their children. So who are the children in care? There's one of our, Kieran, who is now certainly an adult who was in care and has come out the other side of that. But the children that are in care are aged between 0 and 17 years. We can be asked to place children direct from hospital at birth, right up to a few days before their 18th birthday, if they just need someone to hold on to them for a little minute. So the range is enormous. The children in care need to stay connected to their culture and identity. So we do try very hard to match in places and ways that are able to maintain and support that. All of the children in care do have families that are important to them, no matter what their background is. Birth families are an integral and important part of any child's sense of identity. So the way that we support that can help us to support young people to feel like they're part of something bigger. And nearly all of our children in care have suffered some sort of trauma as a result of their early life experiences. And that trauma obviously plays a big part in the way that they're able to manage in the world around them, at school and out in the community. But children in care are ordinary kids, generally with extraordinary needs. From there, the different types of foster care. These come up very quickly. This new PowerPoint's a really interesting one, and I'm sorry if I sound like I'm a little bit jumpy with it all, because I'm still trying to learn all the new things that we're trying to put across here. But here are the different types of foster care that we provide here at Life Without Barriers. We do, well, across any kind of state care, really. We have respite care, which can be for just over 1 weekend a month for each child is entitled to a weekend a month respite care, to school holidays and things like that, to provide a sense of consistency. We like to match children with respite carers so that they have a long-standing and can build a long-standing relationship with them. We have emergency or crisis care, which is that type of foster care that you sometimes see in the movies, which is you get a phone call at 5 o'clock in the evening or something to ask if you can look after a child, and they're going to drop the child on your doorstep within an hour or half an hour, and you have no idea who this young person is except for really basic information. And emergency and crisis care can last for one night, just an overnight, but can extend for 7 days and then into short-term care while the department works out what they're going to do next. The next one is the short to medium-term care, which I was just saying, in terms of trying to work out how to return a young person safely to their birth family, or what there needs to happen to be able to move that child to a sense of safety and permanency. Kinship and kinship foster care, which I mentioned just before, is generally around living with a relative or with a person part of the community. They are very heavily supported, and probably one of the better foster care types if you're looking at foster care, because it maintains a young person within their family network. So it's a very important thing for the department to do, is to seek and continue to look for kin placements while they're trying to determine what's next. So I'm wondering whether or not, they wonder whether or not they need someone to look after a young person for a short period of time while they're scoping for family, and then make decisions about the long-term foster care, which is the last type, which is looking after young children and young people until they're 18 and beyond. Obviously, when we do embrace a young person into our lives as foster carers, they become part of our lives, and we hope that they become and remain part of the family well beyond being their 18 years of age. From there, so that's pretty much across Australia. And then here in South Australia, we have two different types of carers. We've got general care and specialist foster care. And our children who come into care can have, you know, different needs depending on their age and stage of development, on medical and disability needs as well. So specialist carers, which are what we're nearly always looking for. Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to move some things around here. It's not working very well for me. Specialist care, so general foster care is essentially taking a young person that doesn't have particularly complex needs in welcoming them into your home and caring for them like you would any young person, child or young person or of your own. With specialist care, the children have more complex needs. And carers are required to have a higher level of training and a commitment to meet those needs in a therapeutic way. So they need to be more flexible and readily available, specialist carers. It used to be that we had, it was a condition of specialist foster care that one foster carer, if it's a carer couple, didn't work, so that they could be available at any time to meet the needs of the child that's in their care. Obviously, children that require specialist care can often not be able to, are not very successful at school full time, especially when they first come into care. And it's about settling them into that and being available for when you need to meet their needs. Specialist foster carers do receive a higher reimbursement because there is a lot more asked of them, and we provide a lot more training and regular intensive support and coaching by a practitioner who becomes kind of your best mate and coach and mentor throughout your foster care journey. And we provide additional training in therapeutic care models and other ways of understanding the child that is in your care. And we have a therapeutic consultation service, our clinical care, clinical team, which is able to provide an extra level of consultation and support to be able to provide care. There is a question there that's just come up. Husband and I plan to have a home suitable for short-term emergency care, long-term and set within the long-term care. What certainty is there around long-term? Is there legal guardianship? Ideally, we would love to adopt one child, wondering if foster to adopt will be an option in the future. Here in South Australia, the adoption, foster to adopt is not something that I think the legislation will move to. The closest thing that we have here in South Australia is what is called, well, it used to be called other person guardianship. I think it's now called transfer of guardianship, which provides some the foster carers to be the guardians of the child rather than the chief executive. And that's about as close, which means then any agency support steps out and basic support is provided by the government for that. There are a whole bunch of criteria that you have to meet to be able to be considered for guardianship of a young person. It's another assessment process. Generally, children need to be in your care for about 3 years before they will go through that particular assessment process. But it's possible. We've just had one transfer of guardianship go through last month for a little person that's been with his carers for quite some time. So it's certainly possible, and it's about as close as you can get to adoption here in South Australia. So what is our approach to foster care? We have a program or care model called CARE, C-A-R-E, which is an acronym for children in the residential care experience, and they're thinking about the R in that because it also now is very much associated with children in foster care as well. So this is the model that we aim to be able to provide and support our carers to understand and wrap around children in this particular approach to care that Life Without Barriers has. So obviously we have relationship based, which is, as we said, one of the core values of Life Without Barriers. We also look at developmentally focused. A lot of our young people are, they might be 12 years of age, but developmentally they may only be operating at around 5 or 6 years. So we need to tailor our programs, tailor our responses and care for our children at their developmental age, not necessarily their chronological age. Trauma informed, of course, considering the history of a young person and being sure that we are making sure that we're meeting that child's needs in terms of the trauma that they've experienced. Family involved, it is critical that birth family be a real significant part of a young person's journey in foster care. So we do support wherever possible safe and nurturing care and contact with biological family, and to build stories and experiences and memories of family that are more positive than perhaps what was happening when the child first came into care. Obviously, competency centre, helping children to develop the skills and knowledge to be able to negotiate everyday life, and ecologically oriented, which is around their environment at school and in the foster care home. Obviously, positive environments produce positive outcomes. So this next slide is a slide that I would encourage you. I did try when I was doing the test of this particular slideshow. As I said, this is its first run out in the public. And when I went to click on one of these links, it completely shut down everything for me. So I'm not going to click on a link tonight, but we will be sending all of you a copy of tonight's presentation so that you're able to go through and watch the slideshow again. And during that, you will be able to click on those I presume you're able to click on those links to be able to get the stories of our foster carers. We also will, in the chat box, put in the links for foster care stories around obviously what's most important. And at this point, instead of the link, I'm going to throw to Glenn, who will be able to tell us what he feels is the most important role of a foster carer, and what's most important to you, Glenn, as a foster carer. And I will stop and have a drink.
Thanks, Avril. It's hard to single out one thing, but the major thing I see is I'm the link between what has happened and the transition to what will be for the child. And that involves so much, but it's one of those things where it is a daily, hourly, minute by thing where you are constantly working on how to help the child navigate the transition from where they've been to where we really want them to be and where they want to be, really. So that's my take on that. Just so you know, we are long-term carers, but we started off with emergency care, then respite care, and now past 4 years, nearly 5 years, long-term care. And we're involved in special needs. So the training, etc., has been absolutely amazing for us to do that. But I think for the people watching this, you have to have a resilience continual resilience to start again, get up, start again, get up, start again. And I think that the best analogy of this I've seen is in a book by Sarah Naish. And she says that children with trauma is like a quarry that's been gouged out of a hillside and is filled up with water. And you can't see the bottom. That's how deep the trauma is. But for every bit of therapeutic stuff you do with that child, it's like you've thrown a pebble into that pit. And you might go years and not see any change, but gradually you'll see the rocks piling up as the trauma decreases and decreases to a point where the trauma is almost non-existent. That's not for every child, but in a lot of cases. And it's this long-term thing. That's why resilience, but you are the link that's going to help them get there. Thanks, Avril.
Thank you, Glenn. That's a great analogy. I like that. I will use that one in future. That's very good. Thank you for that. Right. So now we'll move on into what we look for in foster carers. And I can tell you that what Glenn just said and those kind of attitudes and beliefs about moving on into the world is what we look into foster care is really what we look for. So the attributes of a great carer, and we do need them with people that believe and know that they can do good things for children. And some of those things can be really obvious things and quite easy to find. So great foster carers have these attributes and are certainly things right through our assessment process that we continue to look for. So this is kind of a little bit of a cheat sheet in terms of questions to be mindful of when you are going through the assessment process. So we do ask foster children or foster carers, potential foster carers, to think about these questions that do you have plenty of time to spend with children? Do you want to help children return safely home to their families? Obviously, in the first instance, that is what we try to or what the department tries to do. And so there's got to be sort of an understanding that, that is a possibility if you're doing the short term and the emergency types of care. Obviously, when it's long-term care, that those efforts to return to birth family are not kind of get stopped but not necessarily completely off the cards. You need to believe in children and that all children will do well if they get the right help, care and support. One of the things that we find in foster care that we really look for is this understanding from our foster carers that children are not naughty, that all behaviour has meaning, and all being curious about what's underneath that behaviour and what's driving it, because once you meet that need, all behaviour has a need behind it as well. So once you meet that need, that behaviour changes. So having the curiosity and the understanding and the belief in a young person that, that they're not just deliberately being naughty. You need to be ready to share your home and your resources with the children who need help. You like, as I said before, that curiosity about why children do things, what drives a young person to do and be who they are, and being curious about that so that you can help to support them in making the right choices and decisions. And that you can help a child manage through tough feelings one of those tough feelings obviously is of missing their biological family, especially in the first instance, but also tough feelings. Our young people that come into care quite often haven't had experiences of their adult caregivers managing life particularly well. And so when things aren't going well for them, they become really overwhelmed because they haven't had a role model to be able to show them that when things are tough, they can tough it out. So really important to as a foster carer to understand, to help their children deal with their feelings better than what perhaps they have learnt about in the past. And also to feel that it's important that children feel included in the foster family. So they're not there just because this is my foster kid, like a pet. They're there as part of the family, and they're there because you as a foster carer believe that it's really important for them to feel like they belong somewhere. So now we move into who can be a foster carer. And I have to tell you that pretty much if you've got 2 legs, or not even if you've got 2 legs, you can have just 1 leg or no legs. It's quite likely that you can be a foster carer. You can be partnered or single, with or without children, from any background or culture. It's your ability to care and nurture a child is what really matters, and that's what the whole assessment process is about. So essentially there are some bottom lines with regard to that, and those bottom lines would be that you generally need to be over 25 with some relevant life experience. Again, it's about talking through that sort of thing with Cherie when she comes out to meet with you first. Is some of these are kind of bottom lines, but some of them can be negotiable if there's extenuating circumstances along that. You need to obviously to be well and healthy to be able to provide care for a young person. Have a regular source of income, and that's not necessarily a job. You could have, be on a pension, you could be retired. We do have a lot of retiring people who now want to, their own children have left the nest as such, and they've finished their full-time work and they're ready to give back to society from, so own income is an interesting one to talk through. You can be from any culture, faith, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, or gender identity or expression. So we have no segregation or anything around any of those things. You can be single or in a relationship, and you do need to be willing to undergo a background check and relevant police checks and working with children's checks. About your home and your family, there's a few things about this that need to be considered. You can have, as we said, with or without children. You can rent or own your own home. You don't necessarily have to be in your own home. You do require, in nearly all instances, to have a spare bedroom in your home. So each child, it's part of the legislation in South Australia that each child that is in foster care has their own bedroom, which is a space that they can consider is theirs and is safe, and they can store the appropriate places to store their belongings and make their own. So that is probably one of the only non-negotiables, is that as a carer you are required to have a spare room in your home for each foster care child. The only exception to that is if you are to take on siblings and it's deemed appropriate for siblings to share a bedroom. Often with twins, when we have twins come into care, we can have them share a room, but that really is the only instance where children can be in a foster home where there isn't a spare room. And that everybody in your family is willing and able to come out and be part of the foster care journey. Your assessment will include those household members and very regular important people in your lives. So it is important that your family are ready for you to take on this particular journey as well. And now I'm going to hand over to Mike to talk through this next slide in terms of the approval and assessment process. Mike, if you'd like to say a few words.
Yeah, thanks, Avril. Yeah, so what do you do after this presentation if you wanted to take the next step to become a foster carer? I mean, it's fantastic, first of all, that you've come along to this session tonight. very much the first step. So what we'd do is we'd ask you to contact our national team. They will take some basic details from you and talk you through the process. Once you've had that conversation with the national team, and we'll provide you with the details later on, they will pass your details over to my team, more specifically to Cherie. So Cherie will then contact you, and she will make arrangements to come and see you, and she'll spend some time just checking out with you about what it is, why you want to become a foster carer, explore the feasibility of it in your particular circumstances, and basically spend some time explaining the process to you. She'll also help walk you through the checks that need to be done, organise for you to be put on any training that's required as well. So that's what we call the inquiry phase. And then once we've got through all of that, then you'll be allocated to an assessor within my team, and they will take you through the assessment part of your journey. So the assessor will come out and see you. They will meet with you 5, 6, 7, 8 times maybe, get lots of information from you. And what they'll do on the back of all the information they gather from you is they will create an assessment, a report, which details that you have the relevant knowledge, skills and experience to be able to meet the needs of a child that would be placed in your care ultimately. That assessment would then be sent off to the Department for Child Protection, and they will make a decision. They will ultimately sanction or approve your status as a foster carer. In terms of timescales, what I would say is that the front end of the process, the inquiry phase, can take a little bit of time because some of those things are out of our control in terms of police checks and interstate checks and things like that. That can sometimes take a little bit of time to come back. But the actual assessment phase, we try to get the assessment phase done within 5 months from start to finish and submitted to the department. And then again, once it's with the department, there's a little bit of a grey area as to how long it will take them to approve it, but hopefully they can turn things around fairly quickly. Yeah, so that's kind of how it works. Has anyone got any questions in relation to that?
Sorry.
Right, back to you, Avril. Is there anything I've missed on there?
Thank you. Just, I'm not sure whether or not you brought up the initial training.
Okay.
Nikki, yes, you certainly are allowed to have pets, just answering your question.
Yeah, so in terms of training, we have a training course called Shared Lives, which is kind of mandatory pre-approval training for anyone that comes through the process. It's really, really good. Gives you a bit of an insight into what it's like, how we, applying a trauma lens to how we look after children. So it's kind of like a little bit, if you've got children of your own, what we try to ask people to do is kind of think about looking after children in a slightly different way. So what you do with your own children won't necessarily work with a looked after child. So that we'll do that. And then if we're looking at you providing kind of specialist care, there may be additional training courses that we might look at specifically around attachment and trauma, for instance. And maybe some additional training required in the assessment phase, but we'll have a look at that on an individual basis.
Thanks, Glenn. Glenn, you're not Glenn, you're Mike. Oh dear, it's been a long day. My apologies. We will shortly put up a link in the little chat box there for the call me back form. I just noticed that there were some questions up in the Q&A chat box that you might have seen pop up while Mike was talking there. But those are, we will find, I'm sure somebody here will be able to find the link and put it in the chat box so that you can click on that link for a call me back. So we go now to some the most frequently asked questions, which we can go through relatively quickly, and then at the end certainly open it up for lots of questions. There is a question in the chat box. Is it possible to start the process a month prior to turning 25? It certainly is. Yes, that wouldn't preclude you from being considered for foster care. Obviously, the process of going through that, through the assessment process, you'll be well beyond 25 by the time that is you're through. And the Call Me Back link has just been put into the chat box if anybody wants to fill in that form immediately. So first of all, about you, here's some frequently asked questions. I am a single carer, can I foster? Yes, families come in all shapes and sizes, as do our foster families. So please, yeah, don't let it, obviously as a single parent, it can be a struggle sometimes, and we put in as much support as we can around our single carers in that sense, to be able to give you an opportunity to get the support that you need, because we do, and as foster carers, they are asked a lot. Next question is, we are a same-sex couple, can we foster? Absolutely. We don't have any discrimination here in Life Without Barriers, and we have a very diverse and we have many same-sex couples as foster carers already with us. Can I foster even though I don't have my own children? And absolutely, you are able to do so. Obviously, as it says there, interacting with children sometimes in the work that you do or in your broader family networks, having that exposure and experience of being with and around and understanding children is certainly, we just look for relevant experience and to be able to meet the criteria that the department requires of us to have you assessed and approved as a foster care. About your home. Now, I'm just noticing with this particular thing that we're going over a few things that I've already talked around. So do you have a spare room? Absolutely. In most instances, you are required to have your own room. To own your own home, you don't necessarily have to own your own home. You can be renting, you can be in public houses, public housing. Essentially, just home has to be clean, neat and tidy and have a spare room. About your own family, obviously you can have your own children and foster children. The rule of thumb with it is to try and have children younger than your own biological children, but that is only a rule of thumb. It's not something that's absolutely applied to. It's what best fits with your family in terms of the matches and the need for care. So we do present lots of opportunities to talk about certain little people and give you some information about them for you to make some decisions about whether or not you feel that they'll fit in your family. And also the assessor, as they go through the assessment process with you, you'll get to learn and grow and understand what it is that might match your family best. And the assessors are really good at kind of helping you come to those decisions. Will all of your family be involved? Anyone that lives in your household will be involved in the assessment process in some way, shape or form. It's really, really important for everybody in your family to understand what being fostering children is about, and to be really positive and ready to take that on as well. So it is something that is a big family decision. And then about the children that come in, obviously how children are matched into foster care. Well, again, the assessor, as I said, gets to know you quite well, and then as you come through and your approval is ready, we have hundreds of referrals for young children on a monthly basis that we need to be considering for foster care. We're always considering, as the assessment's getting through, in terms of the way that we meet and talk, and now I talk with the assessment team about, you know, who's coming through, who's looking like that, you know, what are the age groups that we're looking at, specialist or general, all of those kind of questions. So by the time you get through to your assessment and it's waiting for approval, we quite often have 3 or 4 options for you to be considering, and we'll put those to you for you to make a decision after the approval comes through. So we generally hope to place a child fairly quickly after approval has been given to move forward with foster care. Oh, and here we go. I thought that was up there when I was talking to that, but it's not. Can I choose the age and gender of the child? We will present you with all kinds of options, and yes, again, your assessors will work with you to recommend what the best fit is, considering your skills and preferences. Obviously, we are not going to force you to have a child that you don't feel fits with your family or your, you know, the way things are going to work for you. So absolutely, you have a big say in which child you would have. If you're doing emergency care though, what we do need you to be in that emergency space and in that crisis space is to be able to look after any child between a certain age range. We can select just male or just female children, but we will always come to our emergency carers asking them to at least consider in an emergency situation, could you manage a night or 7 nights with a young person that we know very little about. About the children, the child or the children in care, do they need to have or do children in care have ongoing relationships with their families? In most cases, we absolutely try, as I've mentioned a couple of times before, maintaining connection with family in whatever way that's possible. Sometimes that's only by letters. Sometimes it's only on the phone, or now that we've all got very good at Zoom and things like that, we can do Zoom contacts, which are very safe for some children as well. But we try and work with you to support that in whatever way is safe for everybody. What happens if the placement isn't working out? Obviously, stability is the key, and we will do everything that we can. What we hope is for our carers to feel really committed to working. As Glenn had said, you know, you've got to get up and be ready to go at it again and be resilient, because some days can be extremely tough. Especially as a specialist carer, but you know, the rewards that come underneath that are just outstanding. So what we do say is if you do feel like you're struggling as a foster carer, to speak up about that as quickly as you possibly can, to get the support that you need to be able to persevere through the little bumpy bits, especially at the beginning. Generally after the first 3 months of a placement, it gets really tricky. And then we, you know, for around 3 months, things are quite rocky, and then it starts to settle down again. And it kind of goes through cycles like that. But obviously, if placement has to end, we will do the very best that we can to make that as positive an experience for the children and for you as foster carers. Mike sort of talked to this just before in terms of how long an assessment takes. And it's really, really important to remember that fostering is all about the timing. And if ever you need to take a break from the process and revisit it, it's okay. We have the clock starts from the moment we start to speak with you about foster care. But obviously, we need to work with your availability and with your sense of what's working for you in your life. The best time to undertake this going through this assessment is when you know that you can be available, and to make yourselves available for, you know, that solid little block of, you know, 4 or 5 months to be able to get through all of the assessment components of foster care. Really important. So once you come through foster care, it's about the support that you will get. And I wonder, Glenn, if you have much to say around the support that you feel like you've received as a foster carer with Life Without Barriers.
Oh yeah, in a nutshell, stacks support. We wouldn't survive without support, because you don't raise a child like this by yourself. It takes I heard this a few weeks ago, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village of special people to raise a child with special needs. And without the support we've had, I doubt if we could have lasted the distance so far. We have a wonderful support worker who's been with us on our journey with this particular child since day one. And she has been enormous strength for us. But we have people from the department. We have our child's school teachers. Although we've had battles with the school at times, the teachers are actually very good. Our family, our son, my daughters, my grandchildren. There's so many people involved, but specifically about Life Without Barriers, we have learned to reach out. We have learned that when we're unsure about something, we get on the phone to our support worker straight away to work things out. And sometimes it's a very simple thing. Sometimes it's something that has to be worked through. But it is a team effort. And I think that's the key. You're not alone, but you've also got to learn to reach out. It's not about how stoic you can be. It's about how flexible you can be and how willing you are to accept help, because there's a lot there.
Thanks, Glenn. So in terms, yes, that's the sort of the lived experience of a foster carer in terms of looking after our children and young people. There's in practical sense, the support that we give is that we have a learning and development program, both with online, a My Learning program, which is a range of quite a number of modules that are just with self-driven learning, but also we have training sessions in the models of care that we have. We also have our clinical support that I referred to earlier with regard to clinicians and consultations around therapeutic needs of children. And our clinical support in the specialist sense also can provide therapeutic support to the child or to the family, and assessment support as well on behaviour support plans and things like that. We have a 24/7 on-call program, so all of our child and family practitioners are on a roster for the on-call, so that at any time out of hours you have somebody that you can contact if you're in crisis, or even if you just have a quick question. That's what we're there for on the weekend and things like that. So always there and always answering the phone to you. We provide respite wherever possible, and we're always looking for specialist respite carers. So if some of you just want to start dipping your toe in the pool by just being a respite carer to start with, we would very seriously be looking and welcoming you into the foster care family here at Life Without Barriers. We also have obviously the financial support that is around in terms of your carer payments. As a specialist, that is a much higher reimbursement than the general payments, and is considered to cover the cost of looking after a child. It's not about an income as such, it's about being able to cover what it costs to look after a young person. obviously what that cost is sometimes above what you get paid, but we're there to advocate for you in those sort of instances. We also have carer networking opportunities in terms of we've got a Mockingbird model that's just going to come up here in a minute, and also building again. COVID shut a lot of it down, but we used to have carer morning teas and events and things like that. And obviously the one that we enjoy the most doing is the social events and programs that we put on throughout the year to bring carers and young people together into a larger community. So we also encourage carers to form supportive relationships through their peer networks and approaches of our new model that we've just recently launched called Mockingbird. In a nutshell, Mockingbird has a central hub home that is a foster carer that's got a couple of spare rooms in their house, and they provide emotional, practical and all kinds of levels of support to a number of homes that are called constellation satellite homes within a Mockingbird constellation. If you're really interested in the Mockingbird model, once we move through the assessment process, we do see, and we're starting to build a number of these constellations throughout the metropolitan area. And the one that we have launched in the south recently is proving to be extremely beneficial to the children and families that have been part of that constellation. So that is something that we will talk more about as you move into our foster care program. And really from there, where to from here? So obviously our website is really good. There's all kinds of links on www.lwb.org.au that can take you to foster carer journeys, some talks. You can even see Glenn in action in interviews with his foster care journey, and lots of questions and stuff. As a carer ambassador, we have 3 carer ambassadors at the moment with Life Without Barriers, who are providing some great services to us as an agency, but also to other foster carers and people that are interested in foster care. The Call Me Back link, obviously, I think I saw something up there had come in that there might be a little bit of a problem with that, although I'm not sure if that was for the international people watching or whether or not that was for a local person.
No, Avril, Sharon's fixed that.
Oh, all fixed.
She didn't have a problem with that. I did put that up to that person.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. And I suppose from here, what I will ask is, have you got any other questions that you can put in the chat box? I'm seeing the Q&A box being used as well. Oops, sorry, I don't want to bring that. Oh, excellent. That's just people having questions answered. Fantastic. Thank you for that. But in the chat box, I think is the best way. If you've got questions, there's the Call Me Back form link back into the down the bottom. And as I said at the beginning of this, if you're not ready now, and if this information is just something that, you know, come out of your interest, it would be really lovely if you shared that information. We will be sending you, as I said, a copy of this particular presentation to the email addresses that you registered in, for you to look back on, to be able to you know, perhaps read the slides in a little bit more detail, or find the links to the carer stories and things like that. So a few opportunities that we'll follow up with you about, but please feel free to share those with your networks of anybody that might be interested in foster care, or may, you know, just want to be curious. We love to hear people talking about foster care, and obviously there are an enormous amount of young people and a great deal of work that's done to try and find appropriate, safe and nurturing homes for them. So feel free to put questions in the box. There's a question that's just come up that says, I'm 62. Am I too old to be a foster carer? Glenn, I see you
Yes.
shaking your head there. Go, go for it. Answer.
62 is very young. I'm 69. So that's not a barrier. The thing is, if you really want to help a child, if you really are child focused and you've got a passion, that age is no barrier at all. Welcome to the team.
Excellent. We have a very large friendly dog. Is that okay? Absolutely. In terms of pets, Mike, do you want to answer about the pets?
Yeah, I'd say as long as it's friendly, it's not really going to be an issue, I don't think. Yeah, pets will be looked at within your assessment process. Yeah, it's often quite a good thing to have pets. Some children respond really well to having pets, so it can be an advantage, to be honest. Certainly not an issue necessarily.
Thank you. And Laura, yes, Glenn's story is very inspiring and it's amazing to hear him talk. Do go and find the link on our webpage to hear more of Glenn's story, because it really is an inspiration. And yes, we're very happy to have you on board. Cherie will be around to see you shortly. Can I request siblings? We have 2 spare rooms and it breaks my heart to think of brothers and sisters being separated. Most definitely. We are really keen to find foster carers and bring foster carers into the family that can look after more than one young person. And we often have sibling groups of 3, but we do have little sibling groups of 2 as well. And also, here in Life Without Barriers, we've got sibling groups of 6 siblings that we have spread around because our carers couldn't look after 6 children. We found a number of carers living together in close proximity with each other, and the children live in those houses, you know, with their foster carers, but are able to move in and out like it's a big, giant extended family. I love the idea of us being able to place siblings. So please, most definitely, if you've got the room in your house and your heart, we would love to have you on board. We will include Glenn's information in the email that'll get sent out to you to thank you for coming, so that you can click directly on the link rather than searching through the web page. I don't have any experience with kids, but I think I'd be good with a teenager. They're teenagers needing homes. Obviously, yes, most definitely. We've got some absolutely sensational young teenagers in our program, and also young teenagers that require foster care. It is, you've got two ends of the spectrum, really, haven't you? People that just go, oh, I couldn't cope with an adolescent, and those that sort of say, I'd really, really want to have, you know, someone that I can actually talk to and from. So we do most definitely have need for foster carers. What help would we have with a child with a lot of psychologists and therapists? Yeah, well, we've got our clinical teams, but also a care team that wraps around a child. I have noticed in taking and doing this particular PowerPoint, the new one, there's a few things that have been missed in this, and I'm thank you for the questions that are coming up. So in terms of a care team around a young person, as Glenn was talking about before, you've got sort of the Department of Child Protection, case management, clinical support from Life Without Barriers, plus your practitioner, that's your allocated practitioner with Life Without Barriers, and a number of other therapists and psychologists, OT, speech therapists, depending on what the child's care package is all about. So definitely we try to build a really solid team around young people. Beck has asked, would one foster carer doing shift work or working away for long periods of time create problems for the child? No, Cherie, I'm seeing you might have an answer to that. I'll let you say something. I'm talking too much.
No, we actually have a lot of care applicants that are fly in, fly out through the mines and are away for long periods of time. As long as they have a carer in the household, the rest of the time, pretty good. No, we have a lot. That would be fine.
Yeah, that's great. And, you know, children and young people get to understand the rhythm of the home once they're in and placed. And we can find ways to settle children in so that they understand what, you know, how they fit and how you fit with them as well. So yeah, certainly shift work and working away, it does not impact. Here we go. The question for Glenn. How did you talk to your biological children about becoming a foster family? Did your kids want you to do it?
Yeah, this is this still breaks my heart. We and it's a positive breaking my heart. When we decided to become foster parents, we talked with we had one child still living at home who was 15 at the time we started training, and he was very encouraging of it. And then when we had trained and we were offered a permanent placement, we actually had a family conference on a Friday night, and the three of us sat down and we talked about it, and we said, okay, Sunday night we'll come back together for a meeting, and we will see what we can do. So we got together on the Sunday night and I said to my son, so where are you at? And he said, Dad, if we don't look after this child, who will? So yes, we explored this with our son who was living at home, but we also talked to my daughters as well, because we knew they would have to understand the whole situation as well. So it wasn't just us. It was a family thing, because we had to make sure that we could support the child.
Thank you, Glenn. I've wanted to see how your team works. I'm a carer for the last 20 years. Totally love it, would not change it. My family's grown, plus I'm a single carer. Anyone thinking about helping children, being there for children and living with children changes lives, all for the better. But I'm thinking about joining your team. Wow, please do fill in the call me back form as well. I really don't want to attempt to say your name because I might get it wrong and that would be bad. But I would very much encourage you. We are more than happy to take on people. We do have a transfer process that we go through, and again, we can talk you through that once we get you on registered as being interested in joining our Life Without Barriers family, which is a fantastic family, I have to say. You are more than welcome. Thank you. Right.
It made me teary.
Yes.
Breathe.
All right. Aside from that, if there's no other questions, oh, Laura, hey, Glenn, we got our parents buy in as it's a family affair. Can't wait to join the journey. Oh, I really like you guys tonight. We've had a great group of people come in to watch this session. I do hope that it wasn't, I feel like it was really bumpy and clumsy because it's the first time I've used this PowerPoint, but trying to find those opportunities. In the last PowerPoint, I had lots of opportunities to bring Mike and Cherie and Glenn into the talk. This one, I need to find those opportunities to be able to have them do more of the talking, so you don't hear me saying it all the time, but thank you very much everyone for joining us tonight. That is the end of our presentation, if there aren't any more questions, and we are good to go. Oh, is there a limit on animals? Oh God. Is there a limit on animals, as we have 2 little dogs, 4 cats, 2 guinea pigs, clean houses? That last 2 words is the most important part of that. No limit on animals really, but you do need to have it needs to be hygienic for a young person in foster care, as for any young person in a home. So yes, if you're keeping your house nice and clean, perfectly fine. And obviously with lots and lots of animals, you do end up with lots of pet hair. So the terminology of clean house is, you know, obviously we're not fastidious about it, but yes, it just needs to be hygienic really. Oh, thank you very much, Lauren. I appreciate that. Is it therapeutic for children? Poodles don't lose hair. No, they don't. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody. That kind of finishes it for tonight. And Pauline at Port Pirie Smelters Picnic. I have been in Port Pirie a couple of times. I didn't ever go to the Smelters Picnic, but I have been up there for other events, so maybe it might have been another one. You are very welcome. Thank you for coming, and please share this information as much as you can around. Thanks, Beck.